welcome back to my channel. So we're going to talk about the highlight of last night's episode, and that was the fight between Kevin and Kurtis. I ain't gonna lie, I had to go back and rewind like 4 times just to rewatch it over and over again because it was such a good scene. That was some good TV right there. Love After Lockup really delivered with this episode. So in this last episode, Tiffany has been out of prison and in the halfway house for 2 weeks now, and Kevin is all confused because Tiffany told him not to go pick her up from the halfway house, and he doesn't understand why Tiffany's being like that. So Kevin had his mom come over and he told his mom everything that was going on, and of course his mom told him that sounded sus and was trying to warn Kevin that it's probably not a good idea to go pick her up and he should be picking up on all the red flags that Tiffany is dropping. But meanwhile, Kurtis is at his hotel getting ready, making Tiffany a waffle to give her when he picks her up from her release. So Kevin finally pulls up to the halfway house and he's waiting on Tiffany, and then all of a sudden he notices a big truck pull up next to him, and it's immediately somebody he recognizes from the city, and it was Kurtis, and apparently they know each other. I guess they know people from the same circle. So then Tiffany finally gets out of the halfway house and she walks right on by past Kevin, not even looking his way, just pretending he's not even there. And then Kevin realized right then and there that this is why she told him not to come pick him up, because Kurtis was the one that was picking her up. And Tiffany said she was surprised to see Kevin outside the halfway house after she asked him not to come pick her up, but she said that he's really hard-headed and obviously doesn't listen. And Kevin kept asking Tiffany questions like, oh, so this is your new boo? This is how you do it? This is how you do it? He kept saying that over and over again. And Tiffany just kept ignoring Kevin and going on with moving all her stuff out of the halfway house into Kurtis's truck. And Tiffany said she knew Kevin would always be there for her every time she called while she was in prison, but she decided at the last minute she didn't want to get out and go straight with Kevin because she claims she didn't want to worry about being in a relationship and being tied down and all the stress that comes along with that. So she also said that Kevin, it has a reputation for being a player, and that made her really scared and freaked out as well. She said people on the outside really have to take what prisoners say to them with a grain of salt, and that's what they call prison talk, folks. So while Kurtis was helping Tiffany with her things, Kevin was sitting there at his car the whole time yelling insults left and right at Kurtis, and Kurtis told Kevin to shut up, and Kevin told Kurtis to come shut him up. And Tiffany said that Kurtis recently came back into her life just a few weeks ago, and she wants Kurtis to be there for her with no strings attached. Meanwhile, all this is going down. They have a police officer or a security guard of some sort standing out in the parking lot the whole time watching this whole mess go down. So then Tiffany got overwhelmed and jumped in the producer's vehicle and said she was having sensory overload and could barely handle all this drama because there's too much, and this is exactly why she didn't want Kevin here to begin with. And meanwhile, Kurtis and Kevin are in the parking lot yelling insults at each other in each other's faces, and Kurtis was telling Kevin that he looked like a 3rd grader, and he tapped Kevin on the shoulder, and Kevin told Kurtis, don't you effing touch me or I'll knock you out. And then Kurtis looked him in the face, was mocking him and made a face at him, and all of a sudden he has his chin out and his hands crossed behind his back, and Kevin took advantage of that and did what he said he was going to do. He knocked him the F out. Like, Kevin hit Kurtis with a 1 punch in the chin, and Kurtis went to the ground with his legs crossed. That's rule number 1. Don't ever be sticking your chin out when you're fighting, because Kurtis made it so easy for Kevin to knock him out, because all you need is one good hit right there, especially with Kevin being smaller than Kurtis. He was able to just hit him up from under him. And Kurtis went from being elbows deep in a waffle 1 minute to knocked out on the pavement the next. And it was at that moment that Kurtis knew he effed up. There ain't no coming back from that. I guess they're right when they say the bigger you are, the harder they fall. And the security immediately jumped in and checked on Kurtis, and then they cut the scene and ended the episode. I can't wait to see what happens in next week's episode. It's probably going to suck for Tiffany because she thought she was probably going to have a good old time with Kurtis on her first day out of the halfway house, but now she's probably going to have to play nurse to him all night after that. And Kevin shut Kurtis up with a quickness. Like, Kevin really hit that leprechaun with that one-hitter quitter. And if that was Kevin after all that and I knocked him out, I would have covered him up with a blanket and told him night-night. Like, Kevin and Kurtis are the real-life Spider-Man meme at this point. And so that's it for the last episode with Kevin, Kurtis, and Tiffany. Now I want to talk about Kevin's criminal history. So if you've been keeping up with my videos, then you know that Kurtis is currently in jail for aggravated assault. This is from an incident that happened a few weeks ago, and he's still currently behind bars. Well, Kurtis and Tiffany aren't the only one with arrest records. According to Sarcasm, I'll leave them linked in the description, Kevin has some arrests under his belt as well. Like, we know Tiffany just got done serving 5 years for possession of a controlled substance. And according to Sarcasm, this is Kevin's criminal history. So Kevin's first 3 convictions probably would have been expunged by now if he wasn't in such a conservative state like Texas. But back in November of 2001, he was arrested and found guilty of possession of less than 2 ounces of marijuana. Then in November 2003, he was arrested and found guilty of possession of less than 2 ounces of marijuana again. And then again in October 2009, he was arrested for the same exact charge, possession of less than 2 ounces of marijuana. Which is, it's just so frustrating because marijuana is like legal in half the United States now. And weed really isn't that big of a deal. According to court records, Kevin pleaded guilty in all 3 cases. He was given 12 months probation, and for the later 2 convictions, he was given 5 days court confinement for each charge. But the thing is, unfortunately, Kevin's most recent arrest is a bit more serious than a small amount of weed. He was booked and charged with manufacture or delivery of a controlled substance. It's unclear what exact drug that was, but it does say the charge was for penalty group 1 controlled substance, so that means it was either cocaine, heroin, meth, fentanyl, or ketamine. And Kevin was caught with a nice amount. He was caught with between 200 and 400 grams, and his initial charge was for a very severe felony that could have landed Kevin in prison for life. From that Texas statute for sentencing on Kevin's initial charge, it says an offense under subsection A is punishable by imprisonment in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice for life or for a term of not more than 99 years or less than 10 years, and a fine not to exceed $100,000 at the amount of the controlled substance to which the offense applies is by aggregate weight includes adulterants or dilutants 200 grams or more but less than 400 grams. So Kevin ended up pleading guilty to a lesser charge, and he received a prison sentence of 5 years, and he finished probation and parole completely in September 2019. So Kevin also has a younger brother who also has an arrest history involving drugs. His little brother is currently in federal prison in Colorado, and he's not going to be released until March 26th of 2029. But that's it for this video, guys. Let me know your thoughts about that knockout and Kevin and Kurtis and Tiffany in the last episode, and about Kevin's criminal history as well in the comments below. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and thank you so much for watching.